Yeah.
surreal. Only because like also like I also don't have like a traditional like background, and I wouldn't say that I'm like smart. I'm actually sort of a dummy, and so it was just like it was like all these things that like
Yeah.
felt unreal, and then like here is this like sort of fantasy that I
Yeah, yeah,
was like
yeah.
Right.
stepping into. I don't know.
How did it feel? Did your mom understand when you say, "Hey, I'm going to Yale"?
No, she didn't at all, actually. She, like I don't come from like an education
Yeah,
background,
yeah.
and my parents aren't educated, and so I think my mom was like, I remember I told her and she was like crying because
Why so far away?
she was like, she was crying because she was like, you got accepted to the U, just stay here and
Yeah.
Oh.
go to the U and I'll support you. And I was like, no.
Where's
Yeah,
Yale
I've,
at?
I've, I've
Yeah,
seen that.
it's in New Haven,
Oh,
New
it's in New
Haven,
Haven, Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so like I tell this story all the time, but I think it's like a really funny story too because like so my parents have no idea where Yale was, and so I would say like it's in New York because they know where New York is.
Yeah.
And so I remember like one year she called me and she was like, so where did you say Yale was? And I was like, it's in New York, Mom. And then she was like, oh, really? It's in New York. And I was like, yeah, it's in New York. And she's like, I just caught you in a lie. You're lying to me. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, Yale's not in New York. It's actually in Connecticut. And like you're not going to Yale. So what are you doing? And I was like, I am going to Yale.
Yeah.
It's like I can't tell you it's in Connecticut because
Yeah.
you don't know where Connecticut
I was
is.
helping you out.
Yeah, and so like
Yeah.
I'm like it's in that it's like it's in that area, and then but she was like, well, like is it true that President Bush went there? And I was like, yes, so did a bunch of
Yeah,
other
who
people.
else? Who else has gone there that you can
Oh
think
my
off the top
God.
of your head?
So like Bush is a legacy student, so like
Okay.
his father and his brothers, and I'm sure his father's father went there. Um, let's see.
There's got to be a bunch.
Clinton went there.
Yeah, there's got to be
yeah.
a bunch.
So was that when she kind of realized like the prestige of the school
And
that
does
you
she
were
even
attending?
care?
Okay, she realized because then like I remember coming back home and she like my mom had like before that like she had never given me money to
Yeah.
go, and so I remember like I was gonna go back to school and she like handed me $100 and I was like, what the heck is this for? And she's
Yeah.
like, oh, just so that you can like buy food. And I was like, what? You
Yeah.
know? But
Wow.
it's like
Yeah.
it's so wild, right? Like then when I graduated, she came and like visited the school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Too. And
So how many years were you there for? Was it just 2 or 3 year or
It
four
wa-
or full
It
4
was
year?
it was a 2 years.
The 2
Yeah,
years?
2 years. I
Did you
lived there
enjoy
for
your
2
time
years.
there?
I did. It was like really like traumatic and transformative.
Was that your first time leaving the? Well, no. Well, yeah. Had you gone away for long periods of time up until that point?
Yeah, so before that I like lived in Boston for like
Oh,
a
you
year.
did?
Yeah. And so
Did
yeah.
you go directly after your undergrad to Yale, or did you take a pause and like
I
kind of sit around on it and and like think about what you were gonna do next, and then you applied to Yale? Was there a lengthy time there?
So I went right after my
Oh, right
undergrad,
after
but
the
I wasn't
undergrad.
like a traditional student also, right? So I like didn't graduate high school. I
Oh, you
actually
didn't?
No.
Really?
No, I didn't.
That makes the
I
story
don't
even
get
better.
that.
That makes
I
the
didn't,
story even
right?
better.
I was like a horrible student in high school.
What was your GPA out of high school, if you
Oh
can
my
even
God.
if you can even have one?
I mean, I didn't even get a GPA because like
You were never just
Yeah.
there. And stuff?
I was never there. Like I had to like get my GED.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
I didn't go to college, and I only went to college because one of my best friends like was graduating, and I was like, fuck, like my life is like so horrible.
Right. Like what
You
am I
know,
doing?
what am I
need to-
doing?
Yeah.
And like my best friend is like, here she is getting like an English like degree from St. Kate's, and she's like gonna go on and do amazing things. And here I am like working at this like, sort of like dead end job, and I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And so like 3 years after I received my
Your
GED,
GED, yeah.
I started taking classes at the community college. Yeah.
Hmm.
And did you know that you wanted to go for photography or
No.
cinematography?
No, I didn't. I think very much like the conversation that we have had earlier about our parents, their struggle. I was
Yeah.
very much like wanting to please my parents,
Yeah.
and so I was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go and get like an AA degree in paralegal studies, and then I was gonna go to Hamlin and like get a pre-law
Yeah.
degree,
Yeah.
and then I was gonna go to law school.
Did that interest you a little bit as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I love like debating,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
arguing,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, and so
Yeah.
like I felt like that was like very natural, but like my parents are completely on board with that.
Yeah.
You know, like like super supportive. And then I was like one class away from graduating. With my AA degree, and I took this photo class, and I was just like, it was like the end. For
So
me.
were you into that at all before?
Completely. I was like a high school.
You were still into you were always into the visual aspects of things, right? Okay.
So like in high school, like photography class was like the
Okay,
only class
okay.
that I like went to. Like the only class that I excelled
And this
in.
is like early 2000s.
Early 2000, yeah.
So we're still in dark rooms and
Yeah,
films, right?
absolutely.
Because digital
yeah.
is not really a big thing till like, I mean, digital used to. I remember when they had the floppy disk digital.
right.
Yeah, the
There's
first
there's
digital.
actually a resurgence of digital,
With the-
like of like darkroom photography.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
these
yeah,
Gen
yeah,
Zers
yes,
are like
noticed
kind
that.
of insane.
I
with-
noticed that,
yeah.
the retro and having
Yeah,
the
yeah.
retro lens and the retro cams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So totally.
So how's that conversation like where you're set up to go pre-law and then now you make that transition into photography? Like how's that conversation with your parents like?
Yeah, I
Like how did you break the news to
remember-
them?
I think like okay, so like because I was a horrible student, like any way to keep me in school was like my parents were happy
Okay.
about that.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, it's also like MCAT is such it's not a traditional college in the sense that like I remember like when I graduated, we didn't have gowns. And my parents were really perplexed by that.
Yeah.
They were like, "What is this even Is this even a real graduation? Like, are you really graduating? Did you really go to 4-year college?"
Right.
You know, and so because it wasn't traditional, my parents were like, my mom especially was having a really hard time like grasping the idea of like that school. But yeah, I think my parents were like completely, they were on board with me being in school.
Yeah. As a
Okay.
general
Yeah,
concept,
just
as long as you're in school,
just
that's
as long-
better than doing
yeah.
nothing.
So that
Absolutely.
transition wasn't too difficult. Then I guess they probably didn't also understand like
Did you explain it to them?
yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I mean like
it's
even
I'm
Did you
graduating.
explain-
You know?
yeah, but even when I graduated from Yale, I remember like my dad, like a week later, I'd come home, and like a week later, he like handed me this pamphlet and was like, "Okay, so like now that you're done, like doing your photography thing, like maybe you'll want to look into getting like a degree for becoming a dental hygienist, like at Herzing
Yeah.
College."
As if, just graduated with a master's.
and
Dad.
like and like
Yeah.
and so like that concept is like
Yeah.
so new to my parents.
Well, I think that field is just a field that would be somebody who comes from a different third world country like that, and you told them like, hey, I want to make a career out of like visual photography. How can you explain that to somebody who has that doesn't seem like a feasible option, right?
No, absolutely.
It's like it
Yeah.
just it doesn't seem like. I mean, it's like I often talk about it. I've talked about it with even my business. Is like I wash cars and we can make a living. And there's shops out there who are making millions washing cars, and that's not even a reality in a third world country. So
Yeah.
now we come here and we have all these opportunities and we go into these diverse things that are like not the typical thing, right? Or like he's doing bees, and like
Yeah.
people would be like, "Why are you doing bees?
Yeah.
You could be working, making big money." But I think our generation too, we're seeing like the happiness in our crafts. It can be all the crafts, and we have that opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
we
'Cause
have that
I
opportunity.
do
Absolutely.
relate to that so much. It's like because I graduated from college and then I was working.
Yeah, and what was
working
yours
a
then?
job.
What was your bachelor's?
I graduated with kinesiology. It's
Wow.
just a fancy word for gym. I wasn't
Okay.
too dumb
Right,
to
right.
do anything else, so I graduated in gym. I dribbled the ball, learned how to dribble the
Yeah.
ball, then paid
But
$4,000
what was your
for
end
that.
goal with that? You were just gonna be a personal trainer or
I was,
something, or
it was
physio?
like for physical therapy.
Physical
And then I
therapist,
never
yeah.
went back to physical therapy school. Eventually landing like a semi decent job out of college, and then
That had nothing to do with that, right?
yeah,
That had
totally
nothing to do with your degree,
completely
right?
different. I ended up working
Doing youth
with
work?
the inner
Yeah.
city youth, doing youth programming and stuff
Okay.
like that, and I really enjoyed that. And so I wanted to make a career out of that, and then eventually